Your birth experience really matters.
That was really important to me the second time around, to feel like I was doing something to change my experience.
Experiencing a traumatic or a difficult birth can have lasting effects.
And it was so painful that I panicked.
You know, like you've said, you and those people that you've spoken to, actually, all it's doing is letting you down. And that's really, it breaks my heart as a midwife to hear.
It does make me really sad that that's the position that we're in.
Now, this week, I am joined by an incredible mum, Gabbie.
I was just so amazed at what my body had done, how incredible I felt, how in control I felt all the way through. And birth isn't something that you can actually control.
Your birth experience really matters. And experiencing a traumatic or a difficult birth can have lasting effects, not only in the immediate postpartum, but well into the future as well. And the thought of another pregnancy or another birth can then bring up a whole new wave of emotions and reflections. Now, this week, I am joined by an incredible mum, Gabbie. I've had the pleasure of supporting Gabbie and her family in my YPJ, Your Pregnancy and Postnatal Journey programme. Gabbie's first birth was a traumatic experience, despite doing the prep that society convinces us is the right thing to do. And she decided to take the reins on her next birth, to prepare differently. And today I have the privilege of talking to her as she shares her story to help others to navigate birth too. So, Gabbie, thank you so much for joining us, because you are a very busy mum of two little people now. But I know that you're as passionate as I am in sharing your experiences and ultimately, hopefully, being part of carving that better future for families.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me on. As you said, I am really passionate about this now with the experience that I've had. So it's really lovely to have the opportunity to talk about it.
I'm so pleased. And Gabbie's story, when you sent us the message of Mallory, your second birth, it was one of those that just gave me, I think, and the whole team, just goosebumps and such pride for what you'd achieved. Because often I think people think of birth as being like, oh, if you had a good birth, you maybe just got lucky. And I think that's really unfair sometimes. So there are always elements, aren't they, of luck and things that, just happen to align for families. But actually, I know how much work you put into the birth that you achieved this time round. And so that is credit to you, huge credit to you for deciding to actually take the reins and empower yourself and shape your birth rather than just leaving it to kind of luck or chance, which is really powerful. So well done you, first of all, Gabbie.
Thank you. And like what you've just said, that was really important to me the second time around, to feel like I was doing something to change my experience. I didn't think, oh, second birth will be easier, I'll just get by. I wanted to really feel like I had done absolutely everything I could possibly do to make sure that happened. And like you said, there's always twists and turns, and you can't plan for every eventuality. But the more I did the prep, the more work I did, the more I felt like, look, whatever happens, I've at least got a strategy to think this through, to work on it with my husband. And yeah, it definitely worked.
Oh, you absolutely smashed it. And we'll definitely talk about that. But before we do, can I take you back to your first birth experience, Gabbie? And could you kind of summarize for people listening, perhaps, what made it traumatic? What made it difficult for you, and the impact ultimately that had on you in that postpartum as well?
Yeah, and it took me a long time really to be able to actually describe my first birth as a traumatic birth. Like, it took me a while to really process that that's what had happened to me, which I think probably says a little bit about how traumatic it really was. And I think the main thing that really drove that was I just felt out of control. The whole thing, as from when it started, felt like it was just happening to me, that I couldn't change anything, that what was happening was inevitable. I felt completely underprepared, particularly with regards to early labour. So I'd done two preparation courses, thought that, that would set me up well. One was kind of an online hypnobirthing focused course. One was an in-person course with other couples that was a little more practical. Thought, these two will complement each other really nicely. But I felt that both of them really downplayed what especially early labor can feel like. And my little boy, it turned out was actually in a back-to-back position, which I know now is not optimal. And I knew actually I did know that that wasn't optimal at the time, but I didn't know how to approach that. I didn't know that there were things I could do to try and change that, to manage it. So once I got into early labor, it kind of felt inevitable that it was just going to be this long, painful process. And I was just really shocked by how painful it was. Like I say, both courses had downplayed that quite a bit and, implied that in early labor you can just go about your business. It doesn't even really count as part of your labor. And it was so painful that I panicked. And, it felt like if it's this painful, something must be wrong. And I think once you get into that mindset of panic and worry, it's really, really difficult to stop that when you're having a contraction every few minutes and they keep coming and you're really in a spiral then. So that was the first part that really made it a struggle for me. And then I also had some experiences when I was in the birth center after my little boy was born. He needed some help with his breathing, which we think was down to me having had to have pethidine. That was something that I really blamed myself for, that he'd needed that help, that he'd struggled, because, to me, oh, I had to have pethidine. It was my fault because I couldn't cope with the pain. So I really blamed myself for a long time that he'd had such a struggle. And I also had a really traumatic experience actually being stitched up afterwards. So with him being back to back, I'd had quite a complex tear, had quite a big hemorrhage. And while I was being stitched up, there was a lot of people in the room. They were talking about me in medical terms. They weren't talking to me. I had a lot of really scary things and had a panic attack essentially, and was trying to speak up but felt paralyzed. And that really was, probably the most traumatic bit, to be honest. That real breakdown and just feeling like I couldn't speak, being in a lot of pain, and yeah, hearing all of these really scary things said about me, and nobody explaining to me what was happening, and feeling like I couldn't get the words out to ask.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it felt like it really, from that first point of my little boy being back to back, it felt like, everything quote unquote went wrong. And I
Mm.
really struggled to cope with that. And it meant that for me and my husband, when we were bringing our little boy home, I remember having this moment of, what have we done? Just we were completely shell shocked. We were emotionally, physically, mentally drained, and that's no way to start your life as a family. So yeah, certainly for me personally, I really struggled for a while to kind of come
Mm.
to terms with everything that had happened and to enjoy being a mum at the end of the day. I was looking at this pure, innocent little baby and just not feeling all of the things that I thought I was going to feel. And that again took me a long time to get over.
Yeah, so hard, Gabby. And I think what's really unfair for you and so many other women that have been in similar footsteps, like we know that birth trauma rates in the UK are above 50%, and that's just those rates that are reported and documented, right? But you didn't do nothing. Like when in your first pregnancy, you didn't do nothing. You did what you thought was the right thing to prepare you. And I think that's what is such a big issue is it's not the fact that you went into it like, oh well, I'm just gonna fumble along and do nothing and hope for the best. You did try and take action. And I'm just curious, Gabby, before that labor started and you said that panic kind of took over, before labor, having done the courses that you did, how well prepared did you feel for labor before it started?
I actually felt really well prepared, and I felt like I didn't have any fear. I felt like I could manage. I've always felt that I had a reasonable pain threshold. I actually fractured and dislocated my shoulder once. So, like, that's painful, and
Mm,
I
yeah.
actually did okay with that. So, I went into it thinking it's probably going to hurt, but this early labor piece, the piece where it's going to take a long time, that's going to be manageable. It's only when I get into the real active labor, which is much shorter,
Mm,
like I'll be able to cope with that. And
yeah.
I am a real planner. My day job has planning in the title, so it's something that I do take seriously, and I am a little bit of a control freak as well. So,
Love that.
you think you've put all, you think you've put all of these things in place to support yourself, and then when it is so different, and obviously
Mm,
there's all these hormones raging around, and it just you're not in a position to really think things through logically at that point when you have, like I say, that level of panic setting in so
mm,
quickly. You think something's wrong. I felt prepared. I thought I
mm,
knew what this was going to look like. It's not like that, so something must be wrong, or it must be me. I must
mm,
have not done the preparation correctly. I must have, overestimated my pain threshold. I mustn't be doing the breathing right.
yeah.
That was something that I really, I feel very differently about now, but at the time felt that it must have been me, it must have been my fault that it didn't go
Mm.
to
Oh,
plan.
Gabbie,
And
yeah.
I feel really sad now that I thought that, and to think that there's probably thousands of other women out there that think the same. I met a couple at mum and baby groups recently that felt exactly the same, and it does make me really sad that
Mm.
that's the position that we're in.
Yeah, you're so right that families are trusting, investing time, energy, money, resource in something to prepare them for such a huge eventuality. And, like you've said, you and those people that you've spoken to, actually, all it's doing is letting you down. And that's really, it breaks my heart as a midwife to hear, because, women do it going through all of that to bring your baby into the world, to then feel like you didn't do enough, or you let your baby down, or you weren't strong enough when your body's just done this huge thing is heart it's just horrendous. And like, we have to do better for families. Like, we just have to, don't we? Because I know how much of an impact that experience then had on your postpartum, and then a second pregnancy as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think there's still a reluctance to talk about these experiences openly. After that birth, I wanted to tell everybody that I knew what I'd been through, and you know, I probably overshared with a few people, but I just felt, why are we not talking about this? But there's kind of a concern that we're going to scare women by being honest with them. And I
Mm,
think it is tough to find a balance between scaring people, but actually preparing them properly for the sorts of things that might happen.
yeah.
And I think, yeah, certainly in the immediate aftermath, I probably, like I say, went into the overshare territory, but I do feel really passionately now that we should talk about what all births look like, not just, what a nice, happy, planned water birth might look like. There's a lot of other types of birth that people go through.
Oh, you're so right, Gabby. And I think that's the whole point, right? That should be the whole point of preparing for your birth, is knowing that, that straightforward birth that I know, most people aim for. It's about 4% of births. Like, that literally accounts for 4%. So we're then leaving 96% of families wide open to, trauma, or feeling that sense that you did of, oh my goodness, actually, I'm not prepared for this. This isn't what I wrote down. This isn't what I planned for. This isn't what I taught. And of course, it makes total sense that for anyone planning a vaginal birth, they want minimal intervention. That makes total sense. But I think often when we talk, and I know that a lot of the work that we do in your pregnancy journey is about, we can't just say, this is what I want and this is what I don't want. What are we actually going to do to improve our chances of achieving the things we want? And that's such a big missing piece, isn't it? Like, we can have all that information, but what are we doing with it? What are we proactively doing to optimize the chances of that? And then that piece that is so important, that actually, when we understand our options and our choices, any type of birth can be positive. Like, it doesn't have to just be if you achieve that 4%, then it's positive. And if you don't, then it's traumatic. Actually, my goodness, we have such a variety of births, don't we, in the program? And they're positive, even though they might include forceps and inductions or cesareans, or sometimes they're home births and it is straightforward. But actually the common theme is women feel informed and in control. And it sounds like they're two things that were really missing from your first experience.
Definitely. And I think the other thing that I've really noticed is there seems to be quite a polarization of types of birth. So you've got the one camp which is very much give me all the drugs, I'll take all of the interventions, I'm going to trust the medical system, I'm just going to go with it. And then the other side is the very anti-medicalization, you know, don't accept anything, do it all naturally. And I've definitely found that with the courses that I mentioned before, that you were kind of encouraged down that natural route, and there was definitely a level of this is an option for you, but really you should do this. You shouldn't say yes to an induction. You really should, you know, and it wasn't said, but it was definitely implied. And that I think is what's so wrong. There's so many grey areas in between that, you know, what's right for one person is not going to be right for another. Some people absolutely will say no to an induction, and it's really important that they can make that informed choice. But similarly, some people will be happy to say yes to an induction, and similarly, they need to make sure that they're fully informed when they're doing that. And it's not just you going in saying, no, I don't want to be induced, or yes, I'll have everything. You know, we've got to take each piece of the birth and really think about how we want to go.
Oh, 100%. It's not black and white, is it? And like you say, that grey area, I think that's where real empowerment comes in. That is where women have that ability to have that control and be empowered by their experience. It's never black and white, ever, ever. So let's fast forward to your most recent birth with Mallory. Tell us, Gabbie, what was that like?
It was honestly the most magical, empowering experience I've ever had in my life. Once I, once she was out, I've never had a feeling like that before. I will probably never have a feeling like that again. I was just so amazed at what my body had done, how incredible I felt, how in control I felt all the way through. And birth isn't something that you can actually control. A lot of the time what happens is what happens. But because I'd done so much preparation and I knew what I could do at each stage, I felt like I was more in control, even though, a lot of it's down to your body and down to your baby. And it just felt so, so different. And it wasn't straightforward. I had another sort of longer than hoped for early labor, and I think I could have at that point said, oh, it's all going wrong, the same thing's happening as last time, and let my mindset go that way. And I was so proud of myself because I didn't do that. I took the time to say, here's where I am, what can I do? Ticked the things off my list, reached out to you and the team to say, am I forgetting anything? What else can I do? And took the reins, as you have said before, really took ownership of, like, this is my birth. These are the things I can do. Gonna make sure that I've left no stone unturned. And I think that's what made me feel most proud and most empowered at the end, that I had done that and I had done everything that I possibly could, and that I'd stayed strong through it as a result.
My brand new book, Midwife Pip's Guide to a Positive Birth, is now available. So much more than a book, this is a guide that allows me to hold your hand through your birth preparation journey. With over a decade of experience and knowledge packed in to ensure you really are empowered in the way you deserve to achieve a positive birth, regardless of the twists and turns that crop up. Make sure that you get your hands on Midwife Pip's Guide to a Positive Birth book now and are empowered to have the birth experience that you deserve. Yeah. Oh, Gabbie, I love it. And you did, like, you're so right. That could have gone such a similar way to your first experience because labor started in a similar way. But rather than you feeling that panic, you felt like, okay, well, I know what to do with this. Like we can manage this. And that empowerment for you is obviously amazing at the time, but actually is lifelong. So rather than you stepping away feeling that sense of, you know, weakness in your body like that first time, actually you come away being like, look what I just did, like look what I'm capable of, look how strong you are as a woman. Like that's just how it should be, right? The difference that makes for women is enormous, and you are just, you know, the proof of that. Essentially, like you decided to take the reins, you did the work, you dedicated yourself to having a different experience, and you absolutely smashed it. And so you deserve to relish in all of those feelings of strength and empowerment and awe, right, at yourself and your capabilities.
Yeah, and I felt like Superwoman. I felt on top of the world. It's really hard to describe that feeling, but it was just incredible. And it's really changed my perspective about my first birth as well.
Mm.
I look back and I think, you know, like I said before, I blamed myself for a lot of things. I felt like maybe I'd been weak and not coped well. And I look back and I think, no, I was strong. I got through that. You know, it might not have been the easiest, but I did get through it, and it's really changed how I feel about my body and the
Mm.
incredible things that it's done, and the incredible things that it's capable of. And we, you know, we spend a lot of time as women, as a society, thinking about what we look like and comparing ourselves to others, and you know that I've suffered with low self-esteem. I've really struggled in the past, and I just feel so differently now because of what my body achieved. And like I say, I felt like Superwoman, and I'm really trying to hold on to that feeling for as long as possible, because yeah, I'll probably never have an experience like that again.
Oh, I love it. And I always say, don't I, Gabbie, like write it down, that feeling when you feel that strength and that amazement in your body. Try and write down or send yourself a voice note and how you feel about yourself so that you can reflect back on it in all those trials and tribulations that life will naturally bring us. Just to remind yourself, actually, like you are so capable, and you are stronger than often we ever really realize as women. We are, yeah, just absolutely amazing. One of the things that you've mentioned a few times, Gabbie, is that with your second birth, you did so much preparation. What kind of preparation or support do you think made that kind of biggest difference for you as an individual, do you think?
I think there's two main things that come to mind. I think the first was really all about baby positioning
Mm-hmm.
and the biomechanics aspects of birth that that you talk about on the program. That that one workshop made such a huge difference to my mindset, because I knew that a lot of the challenges that I'd had with my first birth were because my baby was back to back.
Yeah.
And having that workshop and having a toolkit of things to try if baby's position wasn't quite right just made me feel so different. It made me feel like even if the baby was back to back, that it wasn't an inevitability that I was going to have a difficult birth. There were things that I could do, there were ways that I could help. And even prior to labor, there were lots of things that I could do to encourage the baby into the right position, you know, mobility and fitness and that whole thing. And
Mm-hmm.
that made a huge difference. And I also think the other support that I really found invaluable was on the pelvic health side. Having had an injury with my first birth, I was really worried about what my long-term pelvic health would look like if I had a second vaginal birth, and being able to really get to the bottom of what was I concerned about, what were the risks, what, you know, what were the different things that I could do to help. Again, kind of ticking lots of things off, and feeling like I'd done everything I could possibly do to come to a decision made me feel really at peace with how I then decided to give birth. So both of those things I just, yeah, made a huge difference to my mindset and my positivity going into it.
I love that, Gabby, because you mentioned that you're a control freak. And I know lots of women struggle with that idea of I am someone that likes being in control. I think lots of women in society, I'm exactly the same. Like we love being in control. We love a plan. We love direction. We feel uncomfortable when things don't feel in our direct control. And I think there's this idea that birth is just completely out of your control and you just have to let go of everything. But I know we often really challenge that, don't we? Because yes, there are things that you cannot directly influence, but there's also so much like you just described that you can have control over, you can influence, you can have plans for. So for those kind of like control freak minds, which isn't a bad thing, I'm not saying that in a negative light, but if you know that's your personality type, then actually leaning into, okay, so how do I give that nod to that? Where do I gain that control so I feel calm in those aspects? And then what tools can I look at to let go of those areas that I can't directly influence, but not feeling like you just need to be like, right, throw it all out the window. I can't control anything, so I just won't bother. If that's not how your brain works, it's not going to help you.
No, exactly. And it's so important not to have like rules for yourself going
Mm.
into anything like this, because you just don't know how things are going to pan out. And being able to do all of that preparation and really get to the bottom of what might your concerns be, what are you most worried about, just means that you can go in and feel that whatever does happen, you do have a strategy for it, controlling the
Yeah,
controllable essentially. And I
yeah.
think that was definitely something that I really appreciated having done, because I, having had the experience I had with pethidine in the first birth, that, and blaming myself and thinking that what caused my little boy's breathing issues. When I first found out I was pregnant this time, I was absolutely adamant that there was no way I was going to take pethidine. I was so
Mhm.
worried and fearful that I would do the same thing. And having worked through all of the preparation and really considered everything, I felt much more at peace with it. And when I got to the birth center this time, I didn't realize quite how far along I was in labor. I was, very close to giving birth at that point, and things were very intense. And
Mm.
I said to my husband, I think I am going to need some pethidine. And when I reflect on it afterwards, I think like how amazing it is that I was able to calmly and in a considered way decide, oh, I'm okay with this. And that's not
Mm.
something that I would have done had I not done the preparation that I did. So
Yeah.
I didn't need it in the end. Mallory was well on her way at that point. There wasn't time. But yeah, I think the fact that I had made peace with it was really good. If I had
Mm.
needed it, I would have been okay with it.
I love that. You were making informed decisions, not decisions based on fear. And that is
Yeah,
where you get control. Like if you're making decisions based on fear, then it is out of your control. Whereas actually when you've worked through that, like you've done, and you're making decisions based on the information, how that's relevant to you, and you've got that clarity, then you have control. It was then out of your control that Mallory was born and he didn't get it. Not which obviously isn't a bad thing at all, but you had that control to make that informed choice at that time.
yeah, exactly. And it was similar, thinking about like the baby's position. At one point, had there been any hint that Mallory was back to back, I would have been saying, no, I want a C-section. I'm not
Mhm.
doing this vaginally.
Mhm.
And I again felt completely different at the point that I was in labor, and it was the early labor was stalling a little bit. I didn't feel like that. I felt like I've got things I can do. I
Yeah.
don't have to make a decision out of fear. I can make a decision based on a balanced view and the knowledge that I've got, and yeah, I felt really positive about that.
Oh, Gabbie, you're so amazing. Like the difference. I remember when we very first spoke with your husband as well, and like you were just so full of fear at the idea of going through a birth again. So to hear that not only have you gone through it all again, but actually you've gone through it in such a positive, strong way is just so much credit to you. And honestly, just so wonderful to see and to hear.
Thank you. Yeah, I do feel still amazing. I've still got that amazing feeling that I had after that birth when I talk about it. So yeah, it was definitely worth all of the time and the effort and the preparation. It did make a huge difference.
Oh, you smashed it. Now, Gabbie, for anyone listening who perhaps is a first-time parent, just feeling like, well, I don't know what to do, or maybe they're thinking, well, those courses that Gabbie said that she did the first time, that's what I'm looking at as well. Or parents who are pregnant again after having had a traumatic birth, what would you want to tell them, or what advice or encouragement after your journey through this?
I think for anybody that is fearful about birth, whether you're a first time mum or you have been through that traumatic birth, I think you've just got to remember how strong you are. Keep that in your mind. Do the preparation, but know that you can have a positive experience. It's not an inevitability that you are going to have a difficult birth. You can do this. Just remember that you are strong and you will get through it. And you know, if you've had a previous traumatic birth, you can change your experience. There's a number of us that have done that, and you can be one. There isn't an inevitability that it's going to be difficult for you. So just try and remember that you are strong and you can shape your experience.
Oh, I love that, Gabbie. That's just, yeah, fantastic and important final words, really. That, yeah, you can take the reins, you can shape this journey. You don't have to be a passenger in it. It's yours to own. And as we can, see and hear from you, Gabbie, the positive impact that has. It's not just one day. It lasts forever. It shapes who you are as a person. It shapes how you feel about your body. It's so important that we get it right. We get one shot at each experience, and I'm so pleased that you had that experience that you and your family really, really deserve.
Thank you. It was incredible, and yeah, well worth all of the time and the preparation that we did. Wouldn't change a thing. I just wish I could go back and tell first time mum Gabby all about it and change that experience. But yeah, we got there in the end.
We're here now. We're here now. Thank you
Yeah.
so much, Gabbie. I really appreciate you coming on to chat and share your experience. And of course, me and the team will continue to love supporting you in your pregnancy journey as well.
Thank you so much.
If you have listened to this birth story, enjoyed it, and feel that you are ready to really embrace and dedicate yourself to having the most informed, supported, and empowered journey, and want to see if we may be able to support you in YPJ, your pregnancy and postnatal journey, please drop me a Instagram DM at midwife_pip, or get in touch on my email, pip@midwifepip.com, and let's chat through things and see if we might be a good match for each other. I hope you've enjoyed listening, and wishing you all the best on your journey through pregnancy, birth, and beyond.